Let's talk about the Terminator datasheet, because a lot of people are talking about this because it does have a lot of information on here that we can analyze and have a look at. In case you missed it, unit datasheets have had a major transformation. Major transformation? Hell yeah. Okay, so this is the brand new Terminator datasheet. Now, there's some stuff that's quite interesting that they've talked about in the article, but also there's some stuff that's missing that I think a lot of people are kind of like panicking about, but I think they're making some like quality of life changes that you don't realize you need until you realize you do need it. Terminator squad, move 5, T5, so toughness 5, so obviously increased toughness. I think you're going to see this a lot throughout the game. They're going to go from averaging toughness 4, infantry starting to hit that sort of toughness, and then tanks hitting something way higher, maybe toughness 12 they've mentioned. So they haven't specifically said anything. They've said a little bit about it on the reveal stream. They said they're going to see stuff as strong as toughness 12 or more. Now, obviously, Terminator's going to T5, makes them a lot more durable because it means low arms, small arms fire aren't going to hurt them as much. They've still got a 2+ save. They've still got 3 wounds. So what's interesting is there is no mention of a Terminator Sergeant here. So whether the Terminator Sergeant is rolled in or whether you just don't really have Sergeants do anything anymore, I don't know. I don't know. It might be a case a Sergeant gets +1 attack with a weapon. There's a lot of stuff we could talk about, but obviously Terminators, they can take way more than this, you know? You can take Assault Terminators, they're in separate units, so maybe that's why we're not seeing as many options. Or are we seeing less options because they're going to be reducing the options available to units? I don't know. This could be just what's in this box, so that's all you get. So there's lots of things to think about. Now, the quality of life changes is the things that are missing on this data sheet. What's missing? It doesn't say who can and can't take weapons. And it also doesn't say how many you can take in a unit. But just remember, just think, why do you need that on the data sheet? When you're playing the game, you don't need to know how many in a unit. When you're playing the game, you don't need to know what they can be equipped with. What you need to know is what they have and what it does. In Age of Sigmar, they actually have a points list. Haha, leak. They have a points list, and it tells you how many you can take in the unit and how many points they are. It also tells you what's battle line and what's a HQ, etc. So you got battle line at the top, etc. So you could be in a position where in the point section of your codex, or wherever the points are going to be shown off, it'll tell you what battlefield role they are, such as if they're battle line or not, and how many points how many you can take in the unit. It also might say one model of this unit can take this weapon, one model of this unit can take this weapon in the point section, because when you're playing a game, you don't actually need any of that information. What you need to know is what it does and how it functions on the battlefield. So that's what's missing from this, is like how many you can take in the unit can be dealt with on the points page. What they can take, again, on the points bit, when you're building your list, that's the other page you need open. You don't need to flick back and forth. You only need to look at the data sheets when you want to know what it does. So that just makes sense. So the range weapons, as you can see, there's the Assault Cannon, the Cyclone Missile Launcher, the Heavy Flamer, and the Storm Bolter. Now, a lot of these look very similar, but a lot of them don't. It's like kind of the same, but not really. So the Assault Cannon has this tag, Devastating Wounds, which is going to be universal. This is a universal special rule, right? Attack 6, much the same. Strength 6, much the same. AP 0. Which is not the same. It's currently AP 1 and then 1 damage. So what's the difference between this and the old one? The old one has like a version of AP. So it has AP, whereas this one doesn't. They obviously said they're going to be reducing the amount of AP in the game. Is this the first start? It's got the same number of attacks. It's got the same range. But what is interesting is the ballistic skill 3+. Now, they are going to be adding the ballistic skill and weapon skill, as you can see, on the datasheet, rather than having it like a unit have it and then the weapon have special rules. They're just saying if it's a weapon, it'll tell you what it hits on. Now this hits on a 3. So currently, assault cannons are heavy, which means if a Terminator moves with one, it suffers a -1 to hit, so it actually hits on 4s. So whilst you've lost an AP, it looks like you'll actually be hitting on 3s rather than 4s with an assault cannon when you're moving and shooting. Now when you're standing still, it doesn't make a difference. But moving and shooting, that's actually quite good. You know, but also it has this tag Devastating Wounds. Now we don't know what Devastating Wounds means, so I'm just going to go out there and say it's rending. Now rending is an old rule. It's also in Horus Heresy right now. This might be if you get a certain wound roll, it gets AP. So in Heresy, if you roll a 6 to wound, it becomes AP 2. Or, as Sanguine Guard says, it could be devastating wounds, could be something like AP against infantry. So against the right target, it gains AP, but if it's against the wrong target, it does nothing. So against a tank, this is going to be like really crap at getting through the armor, whereas against infantry, it could shred them to bits, which is an anti-infantry weapon. So there's like two options. It could be roll a certain number, then it gets AP, or it could be against certain targets. We don't really know. Cyclone Missile Launcher, frag with the blast keyword. So obviously blast is probably going to be something very familiar. You know, again, hits on 3s, both of these weapons. So if you move and shoot, I imagine there's no penalty. So the Cyclone Missile Launcher we've seen is again extra strength. So it's quite interesting to like making stuff tougher, but then also making weapons stronger. The AP and the damage is exactly the same. The only difference is it's ballistic skill 3 and it's strength 9. The ballistic skill 3, as mentioned with the assault cannon, move and shoot, probably still hit on 3s, which is quite nice. Heavy Flamer ignores cover torrent, you know? Ignores cover and torrent. So it's still 12 inches, still strength 5, still -1, and still 1 damage. So the weapons mostly remain the same. Ignores cover and torrent. So now Heavy Flamers, you don't get cover save against them. That one seems pretty obvious. Torrent is an interesting one. But torrent, as Mercenary Q could say, torrent could just be a way to explain what a flamer is, and it could just be auto hit. Because actually I just realized it doesn't actually say here. You know, that's a good point. So torrent is probably just going to be like this weapon automatically hits and you can shoot it in combat, probably. Stormbolter, 24-inch, 2 shots, 3+, 4, 0, 1. Exactly the same. Exactly the same. Rapid Fire 2. Now, they have made Rapid Fire 2 a new rule as well. Well, rather than Rapid Fire 2 meaning in half range, you double the shot, it means that Rapid Fire, then the number, is when you are in half range, you add that many shots. So they could actually go quite wild with this, where it's like, you could have like a 5-shot weapon that in half range you only get like 1 extra shot, or you can have like a 1-shot weapon that in half range gets 2 extra shots rather than just doubling it. I bet it's Rapid Fire replaces the Dakar Orc weapons. I think so too. If they kept the Dakar weapons exactly the same, then they could just have Rapid Fire X rather than having a special rule for Orc weapons and that being Dakar. I think you will see some faction-specific special rules on weapons, etc. But I think initially, especially Space Marines, they won't. They'll have a lot of generic ones. Now, Chain Fists are 3 attacks, 4s to hit. So incorporating that -1 to hit. Strength 8, which is the same. -2 damage. It was previously -4 because it's obviously a Chain Fist. It gets through armor. But now what it feels like is they are trying to make Chain Fists actually only good against vehicles and not great against everything else, because it is the same profile as, without counting the keyword, it is the same profile as a Power Fist, but hits worse, you know? It's unwieldy. Whereas a Power Fist is no longer unwieldy because that now hits on 3s. They've reduced the AP on both weapons. This used to be AP3, now it's AP2, and this is obviously AP2 rather than AP4. But obviously anti-vehicle 3+ is now a critical wound on a 3+, and the critical wound or critical hit is essentially always wounds on. You could think of it as like a special rule in today's day. You could think of it as poison, you know? Armor Bane 3+. Poison 3+ against vehicles. So it looks like they are keeping 6s to wound, auto wound, or always wound even, and they are making it so you're going to be seeing that a lot more because they have anti-keyword, and anti being the I hate this certain unit. Now, it's a really good rule. I think it's really cool that you can have a Chain Fist that is kind of good against infantry, but not as good as a Power Fist would be because it's worse to hit, but also against vehicles it proper shreds them. But this is going to be a pain in the arse when you bring a load of Chain Fists and you want to fight monsters. Because it should be just as good against monsters. You've got a Chain Fist. If you ram that into their chest, it's going to kill them just as well as carving a hole in the side of a tank and pulling the guys out, you know? So I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, yeah, this is cool. On the other, against all targets, it's kind of just bad. Think about it this way. The anti-vehicle rule is the same as on a 3+, a Chain Fist, when using a Chain Fist, on a wound roll of a 3 or more, count it as a 6, you know? That's essentially what this rule does against vehicles specifically. Also, it forces you to take a variety of weapons, unlike now where you can take one that's all around good to okay. Yeah, exactly, because Chain Fists are kind of rubbish unless you're against vehicles, and even then, the lack of AP is kind of shite. So I think I'd rather take a Power Fist. So you got a Power Fist. Again, it is no longer unwieldy, so you're still hitting on a 3+, but you're getting the same amount of attacks. Strength 8, lost the AP damage 2. And then the Power Weapon, attacks 4, hits on a 3, strength 5, -2, 1 damage. As someone has mentioned, I think it was Hellstorm that mentioned in chat, we don't see anything about the Sergeant here on the data sheet, but the Power Weapon has an extra attack. So this could represent the sergeant holding it, because the sergeant is probably the only one who can hold a power weapon. So there's some special rules here as well. So abilities, core, deep strike. So now core abilities. So this is going to be what I imagine is like core rulebook, special rules, deep strike, feel no pain. You know, all the generic ones that we all say that haven't been in the game for 6 years, then this is where they're going to sit, which is quite cool. So deep strike, I think it's going to be very much the same. Faction, oath of moment. So this is interesting as well. What's oath of moment doing there? I have no idea. I have no idea what this means. So oath of moment is a faction rule. Yeah. So this is going to be, this is kind of telling you where to look, which I really like. This is one thing that I think Heresy really does badly, is it doesn't tell you where the special rule is when it tells you what they are. So it's like, you've got a core ability, look at the core rule book. You've got a faction ability, look at your faction rules. So I like that. So teleport homer, at the start of the battle, you can set up one teleport homer token for this unit anywhere on the battlefield that is not in your opponent's deployment zone. If you do once a battle, you can target this unit with a rapid ingress stratagem for 0 CP. But when resolving that stratagem, you must set this unit wholly within 3 inches horizontally of that token and not within 9 inches horizontally of any enemy models. That token is then removed. So teleport homers kind of work this way now, but there's a lot of stuff here that is new that we kind of take for granted. You can't land 9 inches horizontally of any enemy models. So this is like a new tag, because before we had Pythagoras, and then they changed it, and now it's just in the rule itself. You can't land within 9 inches horizontally, which does set up problems. What if they bring out a unit and forget to put horizontally? What if they just say 9 inches? Then some are going to be no horizontal, and then some are going to be within horizontal. You know, but also Fury of the Fair. So this used to be a stratagem. Give yourself +1 to hit with the Terminator unit or a veteran unit. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack, you can ignore any or all modifiers to the attack's ballistic skill or weapon skill characteristic and or to the hit roll. That's a lot. That's a lot of words. Ignore any or all. So choose which one you ignore. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack that targets the enemy unit you selected for the Oath of Moment ability this turn, add 1 to the hit roll. So we don't know what Oath of Moment is, but we said they're going to be showing off some of that soon. But also, you can ignore any and all modifiers against that particular unit and add 1. So you're hitting on 2s, which is pretty sick. But also the sickest thing is they have a 4+ invuln. So what the fuck is Storm Shields going to do? You think Storm Shields are going to be back to 3+ invuln? Oh, baby, that'd be hot, wouldn't it? I think they're going to have to do some real work on the core game to make this game faster, because if they're just going to make everything more powerful in terms of toughness, and everyone, you can't wound these vehicles, nothing's going to die, everyone's got better invuln, everyone's slightly less killy, there's just going to be so many more models on the game at 2 hours in. What they have also shown off is a stratagem. Now this stratagem's interesting, because all the narrative gamers are gonna hate it because it's too many words. But this is the cleanest stratagem I've ever seen. It is a core stratagem, meaning it is likely going to be in the core rulebook. Enemy opponent's movement phase. There is no question when it isn't. Target 1 unit in your army that's in reserve. Effect: your unit can arrive from battlefield as if it was the reinforcement step of your movement phase. Restrictions: you cannot use this stratagem to enable a unit to arrive on the battlefield during a battle round. It would not normally be able to do so. Look at this. This is the cleanest stratagem I've ever seen. I'm not even needing tournaments anymore. I'm literally going to roll the mats out, put the table in terrain, and go sit down and chill. I'm not going to need anything. No one's going to need... I don't need to talk to anyone. Why would I? Look at it. It's just... what rules query have you got with this? There is... I don't know how anyone, with this stratagem in particular, is going to get it wrong. And if every stratagem is this clear and concise... Oh, mate. Oh, mate. Oh, my God. Tournament's going to be so easy. Oh, it's going to be so good. I'm going to know what everything does all the time. And I'm going to be like, why are you so stupid? Why can't you read?